Welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast, where trauma survivors become healthy thrivers. Each month, we'll feature a theme in the trauma recovery and empowerment field. To promote your recovery, healing, and learning how to build dreams, here's your host, Karen Robinson, transformational coach and therapist.
Welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast. Today, my guest is Laura K. Connell. She is a trauma-informed author and coach who helps people heal from the devastating impact of family scapegoating and narcissistic abuse. She writes about these and other dysfunctional family dynamics on her website, laurakconnell.com. She has a book. It's called It's Not Your Fault: The Subconscious Reasons We Self-Sabotage and How to Stop. Is available with most major booksellers. Sorry for the little stumble there. I usually stumble somewhere, and that just makes the show more authentic too, because I've stopped trying to be perfect many years ago now. It's just so much easier not trying anymore. And thank you for
Absolutely. I
having an
agree.
easy name, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm grateful to be here.
Awesome. Okay, I love the name of your book. Let's start with that. Like, how did you select your title? Did you have help? Did it come to you in the night? Tell me that process.
Yeah, that came to me because the book is a little bit of a response to what I was seeing in the other books I had read about self-sabotage. So my book is not the first book about self-sabotage, but what makes it different is that I saw people saying when they taught about how to overcome self-sabotage, a version of it is your fault. And here's what you have to do to overcome. You need better willpower. You need better habits. And all these things were saying, yeah, it's something wrong with me that I have to fix. And that is what I had been learning a lot through some of the therapy I had done in the past, some of the self-help I had used that hadn't really been effective for me. And what I found out is that self-sabotage is actually our response to our childhood trauma. And it is the way that we keep ourselves safe. So it is a coping mechanism that actually worked really well in childhood, but as adults, it becomes maladaptive, it holds us back. But often we have no idea that what we call self-sabotage or being your own worst enemy is actually this child inside of you that's doing the best it can to protect you. So obviously, none of that is your fault. And so that is the message, the biggest message that I wanted to get across to people. And the reason why, too, my dedication is not to anyone in particular, but it's to the reader. And it says, for you, so that you know you're not alone. And I hope that's what the book has given people, knowing it's not your fault and you're not alone, and a lot of steps to quote unquote fix this or actually heal from the things we need to heal from so we can stop sabotaging ourselves. Basically, that's it.
I really love the topic of self-sabotage because I'm so good at it.
Yeah, we all are.
I bet you've heard that before, right? That line.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Everyone says that. When I was
yeah.
saying the book came out last year, and when I was really busy promoting it at that time, when I tell people what it's about, they'd always say, "Oh, I need that book." As soon as they said self-sabotage, that's me.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you feel comfortable sharing a bit about your background and how it came to be that you found yourself self-sabotaging as an adult? Because I'm guessing you were
Sure.
partially writing about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. The book is very personal, and as is my work, it's bringing the ways that I learned how to heal what was going on with me and just publicizing it so other people can benefit from it. And growing up, I was in a very dysfunctional home. I had a lot of emotional abuse and neglect. My mother had traits of, she was never diagnosed, but she had a lot of traits of narcissistic and borderline personality. So very chaotic household. There was a lot of manipulation, a lot of gaslighting from her. which was very confusing to me, obviously. And she didn't have the capacity for things like compassion or empathy. So when you're a child, you really need those things from your caregiver. And then my father, on the other hand, was very emotionally neglectful. And emotional neglect is really something that we only started talking about maybe in the last 10 or 15 years. And so I didn't know that was even a form of abuse, just being ignored or being made to feel like you don't matter. And there was some contempt from him as well. And later on, I realized I think it's because I reminded him of my mother, and they ended up getting divorced, and there was a lot of animosity and all of that stuff. So that's what was going on in my household. So as a result, I really grew up feeling like I'm really on my own in this life. Nobody has my back. And as in a healthy home, a child really feels like they're supported. They feel like they can explore the world with a sense of curiosity and playfulness, and the people behind them at home will have their back, so to speak. They will be there for them. They don't have to worry about things. They can just concern themselves with self-development and figuring out their place in the world, and their parents will help them with that. But when you have none of that, because your parents aren't really equipped to do that because of their own childhood trauma, you just feel like there's nobody's there for me. I can't be curious about the world. I can't be playful. I have to consume myself with staying safe. So that's where the child starts to develop these coping mechanisms that look like self-sabotage as we get older, but like I said before, are protective mechanisms. And so an example of that would be the very common people pleasing among trauma survivors, the not having boundaries. Although this is the sure way to never have an authentic life and to never really be happy and to abandon yourself, as a child, it was the way to be accepted by your caregivers. It was a way to not be abandoned. It was a way to avoid rejection and keep them happy because I'm dependent on them. They provide everything. And as a child, I can't provide those for myself. So I need to keep them happy. They seem happy when I'm not being myself, when I'm not asking for anything, when I don't want anything. So that's what I need to do. And that's what I did. And I developed this personality of being very like a shrinking violet, like very invisible. I wished I was invisible, but I could never be. And it's funny because people would tell me that I have a presence, or they would say things about the way I look that is very unique. And that was the last thing I wanted. I just wanted to disappear. And so things that other people would have loved, like standing out, I did not want. And so it was this real, what I felt was a trap. Like no matter what I did, I couldn't disappear, which is all that I wanted to do. So that's a little bit of how the sabotage showed up in my life. But even worse than that was the addiction. So addiction is another coping mechanism because it numbs pain, right? We're in a lot of pain when we go through this kind of trauma, and we don't know how to handle it because we have big emotions that we're afraid to feel because nobody helped us feel them or they were not allowed. So the pain that you don't know how to deal with because you don't have the coping skills for that, you get over that with, for me, it was alcohol. For other people, it could be behavior like shopping or an eating disorder or whatever it is that numbs that pain for a little while. I was using alcohol, and that started when I was a teenager. And so what I got with that was the label of the problem child, because my response to the way my home life was to drink and party and have bad boyfriends and all that stuff. And so I became the problem child, which is a version of the family scapegoat. So
Right.
that, that all that
Self-fulfilling
was coming
prophecy.
in. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Nobody's asking why she's doing this. It's just she's bad and she's a problem. And that was it. So that's a little bit of me and how the sabotage showed up. I came out of that household like a feral cat, just afraid of everything, afraid of people, afraid of the world, and numbing it all with alcohol. That's what was going on.
And you're in recovery now? For how long?
Oh yeah, it's funny because as soon as I got out of my marriage, I married someone who was very much like my father in terms of being emotionally neglectful. So we had two children together, two beautiful girls, and we were together for 10 years. And when I finally got out of that marriage, that I got sober within a year. So I had been drinking, not always alcoholically. It ebbed and flowed depending on what was going on in my life. But by the end of the marriage, I was very much in my addiction. And that had been going on since I was 17. And then getting out of that marriage at age, like, I think I was 38, 37, 38. I finally just had the space because both of us had toxic families. So I was just swimming in a toxic soup in that marriage. So when I finally got out, that was when I could look at myself and see, yeah, I need to get my head clear. I need to deal with this issue and really get honest with myself. And that was where the healing began.
Yeah, I really appreciate that you're sharing that the drinking for you was another example of self-sabotage. And also too, the shrink and violet thing. I resonate with that, even though I loved being in plays and drama. That was okay because I could see people, but there's something about being visible online that really makes me want to shrink. Like it's hard for me to do videos. I was like, I don't know who's going to watch this. I don't know what they're going to say, to think. And if it's a crowd, you can see people's faces. It feels more comfortable. It's just so weird. So I
That's interesting.
self-sabotage. Yeah, I self-sabotage going live all the time. I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
maybe tomorrow. And
Yeah.
my drug of choice wasn't alcohol, it's been food to
Mm,
also feel the numbness. And it's
yeah,
really interesting to me too, like what we will do to not feel. And all it really
mhm,
does is gives us another problem to work on. Like it really doesn't.
exactly.
It if it's our medicine at the time, but man, that medicine has lots of consequences.
It sure does. And that's how you know it's an addiction. It's like a short-term fix with long-term consequences.
Yeah, and it just is so puzzling to me, even as a therapist. I've been a therapist for 25 years. It's puzzling to me when we know that emotions, when we feel them, they don't last long. It's our thinking about it that can
Yes.
last, our thinking and our behavior. So if we just allowed ourselves to feel, it would pass. But it has become such a scary, painful thing for us.
It's the
It's
fear
too
of it.
much. Yeah,
The
it's
fear
very
of it is
fascinating.
worse than the feeling it for sure.
Exactly. We make it blown up in our heads. We're gonna just die if we feel something. So it's
Mhm.
better to be numbed out. Yeah. Okay, so I see that you've done a lot of healing and recovery. Can you talk a little bit about what that has looked like? Like, how have you stopped self-sabotaging, or do you still do it in some areas of your life?
Yeah, no, I've really got a handle on the self-sabotage. And what really worked for me was something called inner child healing.
Mhm.
Another thing that worked for me was mindful self-compassion, and that incorporates what we were just talking about, which is simply feeling your feelings. And that might sound so simple, but in reality, even people who don't have addictions, who come from relatively healthy homes, might have trouble simply feeling their feelings because we want to give ourselves a pep talk. We want to say other people have it worse. We want to make ourselves feel better. But that's not always what we need to grow and to learn and all of that stuff. So, really sinking into how you feel to me has been the way to go. And knowing that there are no negative emotions, they're all just there to tell you what you need to know. And they are a way to connect to yourself. So I can give you an example. Disappointment was actually the most recent emotion that I was able to come to terms with. I think I had all of the other ones, I was able to process them. Like you said, I got to the point where I used to be so reactive around anger and I could never let things go. Like I would hang on to this feeling of anger for days sometimes. And then when I learned to really just accept it and process it, it would literally be 90 seconds. It would just be this flash that would go through me and then it would be done. And that's what they say happens in the animal kingdom as well. Like they kind of
Yep.
literally shake things off
Shake it off.
and then it's gone. And I learned to do that. And what I want to stress is that I didn't learn to do it by trying. It just happened as a result of experiencing it, like literally just allowing myself to experience how I felt, to feel it instead of numbing out or running away or lying to myself about what I was really feeling. That just made that happen naturally. So a lot of times people want to know, but how do I do it? How do I do it? It's like you just experience it. That's it. You experience it. So with the disappointment, I was doing all the things that I just described. I would really always like just pep talks. This is the way it was supposed to be. This is for the best, all of that stuff. And sometimes that might be true, but that is not giving yourself the space to feel what you're actually feeling. And so when I really learned about this mindful self-compassion, which is actually a modality that Kristen Neff, who's a psychologist in Texas or at the University of Texas anyway, and she has championed this. She gave it a name. She's really researched it over the last 15 years. I realized that although I'd been studying this concept for a long time, I really only had it in my head. I hadn't truly brought it down to the level of experience in my body. And so I remember I was actually in the shower, which is such an experiential thing with the water and everything. You're really connected to yourself there, hopefully. And I decided I'm going to feel this disappointment over something that had happened. I'm just going to really feel it. And I cried a little and I felt sad. And again, it didn't last very long. And I realized that the reason why I was so afraid to feel that emotion is because, like you said earlier, I thought it would kill me. Like I thought it would take me over. And it's because as a child, nobody was there to help me through that. Nobody was there to say it's okay, or yeah, that's disappointing, isn't it? Or whatever somebody says. I don't even know because I never had it. That is something I gave myself. And that is what I would call reparenting as well. Reparenting yourself, comforting yourself through your emotions instead of giving yourself a pep talk that may or may not be true. If you just give yourself a pep talk because you think you're being a grown up, you're really going to miss the chance to connect with yourself and the chance to heal, the chance to learn something too that you can take and improve your life with. So I'm really into feeling your feelings.
Yeah, that's all such important information that you're sharing. If you think about it, if we don't allow ourselves to feel, and then we're doing that pep talk that you talked about, that's the adult role or the manager role. Like we are pushing away that hurt inner child again, exactly like our parents did. We're
Mhm.
re-hurting her. So it's really important to let her express, however that looks like. And it's really important to let her heal the way she wants to be healed, whether that's with creativity, doing mindfulness exercises, reading uplifting material, like whatever. There's so many different ways to heal nowadays. I just love diving into the different healing
Mhm.
modalities. But I'm glad you mentioned Dr. Neff. I'm a huge fan of hers.
Mhm.
And there's also Dan Segal. He wrote the book Parenting from the Inside Out.
Yeah.
And he has a lot of journaling questions on how to reparent yourself and very powerful. Yeah.
Mhm.
That inner
Yeah.
child stuff is really important. Yeah.
Yeah, I first learned about him when I was studying my fear of intimacy. He has a lot of work on that too. So I'm a fan of his as well.
Yeah, he's neat because he's a neurologist, a psychiatrist, and he also does therapy. You don't see that much. So he's really well-rounded. Yeah. Yeah. So other than the mindfulness, self-compassion, did you go to AA too for your recovery? How did you recover from alcohol?
Yeah, I did do a 12-step program, and that was how I finally was able to give up the alcohol because I had to face the fact that I couldn't do it on my own. And like I said at the time, I hadn't even started healing. I didn't have any tools. I was very much hiding things. And all the people in my life were enabling me because they were drinkers or drug takers as well. So that's part of it too. I had to change my whole life, change who I spent time with, all of that stuff. But I finally realized, because I'm a person with tremendous willpower. I'm a person who, even when I was not unhealed, I could set my mind to something and really make it happen. But I couldn't stop drinking. And I had to admit that to myself, that I literally couldn't. And I didn't understand why. And so I entered the 12-step program. And at my very first meeting, I actually remember walking in. It was at this old church in Toronto, which is where I grew up. And if anybody knows downtown Toronto, it's on Simcoe Street. It's that big Anglican church on the corner across from Roy Thompson Hall. But I remember I walked in there, and the first thing I saw was a sign that said, "You are not alone." And that just made me feel so much better, because I think about, at that time, I felt so alone. And then I walked into the room, and they were reading from something they call the Big Book,
Big
I
book.
think, the
Yep,
Big
yep.
Book, it's a book called Alcoholics Anonymous, but they just call it the Big Book. And they were reading from it, and it was a series of stories of people who had used the program and recovered. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is me. This is me. And so I felt like I had finally figured out what was wrong with me, so to speak. And so I never drank again after I entered that room. That was in 2010. And I can say that was the beginning of my healing journey. I'm no longer in a 12-step program. And my personal feeling is that it didn't serve me to keep saying that I'm an alcoholic, which is something you have to do when you're in 12 step. And for me, after a year, I was solid in there, going all the time, very regular. The second year, I wasn't so much regular, and I was starting to feel like I wanted more. And I'm very grateful to it, because I think in many ways I owe my life to that program. But in other ways, as a very growth oriented person, I needed more. And I would also say there are certain things to be aware of, especially if you're a woman. You need to be careful. There are predators in those rooms. There aren't any barriers to entry, obviously. So you need to be
I
careful.
know.
I just
Yeah.
want I always say that because I think it's my responsibility to tell women that.
I appreciate that a lot. It's one of
Mhm.
those things where there's a lot of pros and cons with the program, just like a lot of programs that would be true as well. I'm really glad you said that. I usually tell my clients, like, please don't go to your AA meeting looking for a mate, because if one of you goes down, chances are you both are going to go down. You don't, even though there's like trauma bonding, like, and lots of things in common, we have to look at your overall health. So we want to track somebody healthy.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, and it took me years to get over my relationship struggles with men. They recommend 1 year without relationships, but I needed much more than that.
Yeah. And that's okay. It sounds like you know yourself.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really good. Okay. So AA was part of your treatment or your healing, mindful self-compassion. What else? I'm not sure if you said other things. I know, like, you're working on
Yeah, inner
not
child
sabotaging,
healing.
inner child
Yeah,
healing.
inner child
Yes.
healing
Yes.
was a big one. And for me, that was recognizing that the self-sabotage was my inner child's way of protecting me.
Yes.
And to stop this idea that I was my own worst enemy. Because we can say that, and it's okay to say that. I've said that, and sometimes I still do, but it's not actually true, because all the parts of you are on your side. They just don't have the skills. It's a child who hasn't been
Yeah.
given the skills growing up to do it properly. So it tries to help you in these very maladaptive ways. So
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, so I learned to thank that child and let it know that I was going to take care of it now, and give it evidence that I could take care of it, and learn that, of course, as a child, I had to do all those things because as a child, you don't have access to resources that you do as an adult. So I can make my own money. I can choose who I spend time with. I can Google something that wasn't available when I was a child. Like, I have access to all these things I didn't when I was a child. So I could stop feeling so trapped and like I had to do things I didn't want to do and realize that if somebody doesn't like me, that's actually not the end of the world, that it's possible they could harm me, but the likelihood is that they're not going to. And nothing's going to happen to me except I might not feel that great. And I can get past that in order to have an authentic life. It's not the crushing tragedy that you think it is, that the inner child thinks it is. And I noticed things like my inner child trying to protect me by avoiding certain things. Like I moved to Florida a couple years ago and I had to get out and do new things. Everything was new. And to your inner child, novelty is scary, right? And so I'd be going to do something new, and the child in me would be like, "You don't want to do that. You don't have to do that. Just stay home. It's safer here."
It's
And
too hot
so I would,
outside.
yeah. And so I would literally be walking to this new thing I was going to do and talking to my inner child. Like I feel it in my stomach mostly. And I would touch my stomach and I'd say, I know you're trying to protect me. I know you want to keep me safe, but if anything happens that we don't like, I can handle it. I can leave or I can deal with it. I'm a grown up now. So thank you for trying to help me, but I really have this and it's okay. Why don't we just go and have a good time? That kind of thing. And I try to assign my child now to find things for us to do that are fun. Because as a childhood trauma survivor, fun and joy can feel very inaccessible. Hobbies
Right.
even can be hard to come by because they might feel like just more work or another way to fail, all of that stuff. And that perfectionism that I think we touched on earlier comes up. To just do something for fun can actually be really hard for your inner child. So
Mhm.
that's something I'm still working on developing. I'd say that is probably going to be the last piece in my healing where I can feel joy and abandon in the good way, like just a feeling of flow on a more consistent basis. That is, in fact, like a goal of mine for 2025.
Oh, I love that. That's really beautiful. Yeah, I try in my sessions with clients to let them know that yes, healing can be work, it can feel like hard work, but it's really important that we lean into play too and laugh when we can laugh and experience comfort when we can get it too. So I definitely like that you're focusing on joy. It's so important.
Yes, it
Okay,
really is.
let's see what else I should ask you because we're running out of time. We had a question and then I lost it, and I'm sure it was like a brilliant question and it just went to Neverland.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Okay. I guess it's really not that brilliant, but it's a good question. I would love to hear in our audience to hear how do you work with clients? What's your modalities? Do you do group work? Do you do individual work? Do you do both? Do you do workshops? Share with us a little bit about your practice.
Yeah, so right now I do only one-to-one clients, and I generally don't work with more than 6 people at a time. And for that reason, I actually put my process into a course so I could share it with more people. But I have a process for healing, and I usually send people to a free training I have so they can learn more about that. And a lot of it is there's the inner child healing I spoke about, there's the mindful self compassion, there's a little bit of parts work, there's a little bit of EFT. So those are the main ones that I really like. But what I'll say is that a lot of my healing process for myself and what I share with my clients and people who take my course is that a lot of the mainstream methods that you hear the most about, like some things that Brene Brown says, or the mainstream self-help that tells you to leap and the net will appear. A lot of positive psychology, which is what I was given when I first went to therapy. Those don't work very well for people who have childhood trauma. And in fact, I use positive psychology now in my life, now that I'm on the other side of my healing journey. But when I was very first starting, that wasn't a good method for me. So just like my book was an answer to things that weren't working, my method is an answer to things that didn't work for me. So I don't do CBT, which is for me, it was changing your thoughts to change your life. That didn't work for me. So those are things that I don't invite people into. I would be more about what we talked about, feeling your feelings, that sort of thing, rather than talking yourself out of something and getting curious about your thoughts. If your thoughts aren't serving you, or so you think, let's get curious about why you're thinking that way. If you're thinking negatively all the time, where did that come from? Is that protecting you from the disappointment I talked about earlier? Is that something you learned in childhood to keep yourself safe? Let's get to the root cause of what's going on. Instead of just treating symptoms, let's get to the root cause of why this is happening. And a lot of that is self-awareness. So the feedback that I get most is that people say after they work with me that they've had a rebirth. So they feel like a new person. And that new person doesn't do the things that the old person did. So it's not so much trying not to do things, which is what I always felt like when I was doing therapy back in the 90s. I felt like I was trying to act a different way. I was trying to think a different way. And it wasn't authentic to me. And so the work that we do, you come out a different person so that the differences in your behavior and your thoughts are just the outcome of the work rather than the work itself. So I hope that makes sense. And then it's different for everybody. Like it's so unique as when you work with someone, every person, it's like a custom program that you do according to what they're going through.
Yeah, I tell my clients they're not cookies. I don't believe in cookie cutter. I usually give them an options of different treatment modalities.
It's nice that you do
Yeah.
that because I didn't get that. If you were my therapist, I would have done a lot better back when I was trying to get therapy. It just wasn't what I needed at the time. But psychology changes and grows just like anything else. And they know so much more about childhood trauma and why it affects your adult outcomes than they did back when I was first seeking therapy.
Yeah, and it's actually still considered to be new research. There's research coming out so fast on the daily. And my specialty is actually complex trauma. And that's
Yes.
why I've been trained in all the modalities because uh, when you work with someone that has complex trauma issues, there's a lot of different things to work through. Like you said, to
Mhm.
get to that wound, to clean that wound out and make sure it heals correctly in a safe, nurturing environment. My experience with a lot of therapists is that they're not trauma competent. A few will say that they're trauma informed, like they'll take a couple courses on trauma or maybe get one certification, but there's not
Mhm.
many who specialize in trauma. They might specialize in anxiety or depression, but getting
Mhm.
a therapist specialized in trauma, they're out there. It's
Mhm.
hard to find them.
It is, yeah. And that's why I tell people to ask a therapist if they know what complex trauma is, if they've been through it, if they know what it is. So even the fact that it, I think, is really important.
Yeah. I'm in that, I have the highest certification in it too. Yeah, I think it's
Mm.
just very important. I feel like it was a lot of work for me to do this, but I feel like I'm now a better resource for my clients because of it.
Mhm.
And I also do coaching, so I can work with people all over the world and stuff. I think people sometimes worry about the label or the degree. Like some people will say, oh, I can't hire a clinical social worker. I need to hire a psychologist because of that PhD label. And the psychologist may not be trained in like person and environment or family systems or
Yeah.
relationships. Like sometimes their primary focus is on testing, right? It's really looking at your coach, your therapist, and looking at the skills that they have and what they can offer you. And I also think those of us who are survivors are even more equipped if we've done our work, of course, because we get it. We get what it's like to be in that place where you feel like you're not enough. because of
Yeah.
how you were treated as a child. You get that feeling. And I think it's important for our clients to know that we get that, even though
Yeah.
we didn't
And
live their
I'm so glad.
shoes. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I'm so glad you said that because for me, that's been actually the thing that I get told the most is that I get it because I've been through it. And it's very validating for them. And that can be healing just to be seen and heard in a way where they feel really understood. Because, like you said, you have been through it. That can be even more important than the skill set, that interpersonal and that feeling like you see
Yeah,
them and you understand them in a way that sometimes they've never had in their whole life.
yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
hear
true.
you.
That's true. Yeah, the most number one skill for anybody in the helping profession is these things, learning to listen. Most people have
Right.
not been heard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so people listen to podcasts. I was pointing to my ears, but you probably figured that out. Laura, as we wrap up, are there any last words of wisdom that you want to give the audience? Do you want to tell them how they can find you online again as well?
Sure. Yeah. So if you're interested in learning more about what I do or my process for healing, which is a little different than a lot of what's out there, you can go to my free training and it is on my website, laurakconnell.com/masterclass dash registration. And maybe we can link to it below because it's a bit of a mouthful. And I would just say that the most important thing to me in life is authenticity. And I would say that the biggest goal, the greatest thing we can achieve is an authentic life. And so all the work that we're doing when we're healing is leading us to that authentic life. And when you heal yourself, but you also heal the world because you have something to share that you might not even know about yet because you still have to uncover it. So I would just encourage people with that.
That was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you for listening in today. Please join us next week, same day and time. Also, I would love for you to check out my website, healthrivedream.com.